Part 18. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 171. 170 being researched. The Wolf Pack team and Murphys suddenly appeared in the Black Wolf base, and they looked around very curiously. "Welcome to my base." Chunyuan went up to say hello with a smile. Murphys looked around and said, "Suddenly a sentence came from my mind, asking me if Chunyuan invited me to his world. Do I agree?" I said yes and came here. "Me too," Rupier agreed. "Here is another world?" Looking around with 4 eyes, "It doesn't seem to be much different from the place we are in." Chunyuan said, "This is the Black Wolf base, my military base. Basically all the military facilities are here. Red Queen 00002, please come and explain it to everyone." "Yes, Master." The holographic projection flashed, and the image of the little girl with blonde hair and red dress appeared in front of everyone. She saluted very gracefully, "Hi everyone, I am Red Queen 00002. Now I will introduce this black girl to you." Wolf Base. Compared with the previous venomous tongue-tattooing character, this Nima is completely set up by 2 people. Chunyuan was dumbfounded. Others were equally astonished, and Murphys pointed at the Red Queen in amazement. You are the Red Queen. You are the central management AI of Red Umbrella. Why are you here?" "I am indeed Red Queen 00002. I am currently in charge of managing the daily affairs and unit control of the Black Wolf base, but I am not the central management AI of Red Umbrella." Red Queen 00002 replied politely. Looper looked at Chunyuan and said, "So when you were at the Raccoon City Underground Research Institute, you used your database area just to get the Red Queen?" The 4 eyes focused on another aspect. "You actually let an AI call you the master?" Her slender and beautiful eyes were now wide open, but this expression full of surprise made her original cold temperament become its even more touching. "This is the master's request, and I must obey it." Red Queen 00002 bowed and said. What else could Chunyuan say? He could only roll his eyes. Never in his life would he have thought that it would be an AI who was making jokes with him. Anyway, the word pervert is already written in the eyes of Looper and 4 eyes looking at him. "What's the matter? 0 is her master. Isn't that right?" Beltway laughed and walked over to pat Chunyuan on the shoulder. "It's just an expression of affiliation, affiliation." Chunyuan explained, and quickly changed the topic, lest the Red Queen 00002 become more and more black. "Let's go, time is limited, now let's go around here bar." "Yes, Master." The Red Empress 00002 bowed to Chunyuan, and then said to the others, "Please go in this direction, I will wait at the next projector." Now the Black Wolf base has changed a lot under the continuous mining of thousands of worker ant drones day and night. The base that was originally surrounded by countless ruins is now much wider. The open space opened up is used to build a large number of BOW production line. Now there are 3 T-72 main battle tanks, 2 M2F light tanks, 144 Predator Alpha, 286 Lickers, and 398 Cerberus. And here is the building of the production line. Red Queen 00002 began to introduce. Murphy's face changed drastically. "Wait a minute. The Hunter Alpha you mentioned, could it be the B.O.W developed by Umbrella Company?" "Yes, the master got the Umbrella Company's database and built a production line based on it to mass-produce BOW, but now only these 3 types of B.O.W can be mass-produced." Red Queen 00002 replied. "The scale is close to 1,000. This scale, even the Umbrella Company has not reached it," Looper said in a deep voice. However, Murphys walked directly into a Hunter factory, and seeing the Hunter Alpha gradually growing in the cultivation tank, a morbid smile began to appear on his face. He, beautiful, beautiful. These production lines are even more efficient than umbrellas. He. He continued to walk inside the base, and on a platform, he saw dozens of hunters, lickers, and hellhounds standing there motionless. The smile on his face became brighter, and he suddenly turned to Chen, "Is this your power? Is this the world you brought? Ha 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 ha, so beautiful. With such power, you can. To overthrow the original giant and establish a new order." Chen Yuyan replied with a smile, "Remember, it's us. We do all this. So, I need your strength." After visiting the Black Wolf base, they put on protective clothing and drove to the mining area. The Red Queen 00003 received them, and also greeted Chen Yuyan, who was also meeting for the first time. "Master, Red Empress 00003 is here to serve you, Master." Looking at this holographic projection of a lowly who bowed to him very respectfully, and the four eyes with increasingly strange eyes, Chen Yuyan felt profuse in sweat. The mining area is a completely different scene. More than 20 protector-type guard robots are patrolling the mining area with clumsy steps. The only crab spider-shaped engineering robot was busy on the 3-story apartment building that was built before Chen Yuyan, and now no one was using it, reinforcing the structure of the building with found metal scraps. Dense drones of worker ants crawled among countless tiberium crystals, cut the crystals, and sent them to the refinery. There are also some worker ant drones that collect other objects that have been eroded by tiberium. These objects cannot be sent directly to the refinery, so they first send these objects to the subsidiary manufacturing station under the command of the Red Queen 00003. In the warehouse, the tiberium crystals separated from the infinite base are transported from the warehouse to the refinery. The infinite base does not provide refining of tiberium crystals, so the only way to obtain refined tiberium mines is in this way. The entire mining area is completely mechanized. Then came the Nuwa base, where Chen Yuyan was going to take them to check out the newly built biochemical laboratory. However, as soon as he got off the car, he saw a beautiful figure running towards Chen Yuyan like a butterfly, and he threw himself into Chen Yuyan's arms and said loudly, "Dad, I finished copying all the dictionaries one by one. Can we go out and play?" Chen Yuyan glanced around secretly, and found that her face was ashen, and she had already started to play with the Beretta 92 FS pistol in her hand. "This is fatal." Chen Yuyan hurriedly said, "Ah. Let me introduce to you, this is Yi. Her origin is a bit complicated. It was made by a previous scientific research team using my prim arch, so that's why she calls me Dad." Yi turned his head to look at the people in the wolf pack team, but he just responded indifferently, "Hi, I'm Yi. I'm Dad's daughter." Doda's sweat left Chen Yuyan's forehead. "By the way, what day is it today? Are the Red Queen and Yi both double-faced? There are completely two styles of painting in front of oneself and in front of others. By the way, is Yi so indifferent? Why didn't you find out before?" "Well, it seems that she hasn't contacted anyone before." The face of the Four Eyes eased a little, and asked, "This is the research institute where you study B.O.W? Chen Yuyan replied with some embarrassment, It's the research institute where I was studied." All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 172. 171 Murphy's Resources. Next, everyone went to Xingfu Village, Beatty Village, and Muhi Village together, but it didn't take too long, because the wolf pack squad were all murderous monsters and had no interest in people's livelihood at all. Now the three villages have gradually begun to get on the right track. Clinics in the villages have been opened. Doctors who used to sit at home now have professional facilities and can receive some food and meat every month. The village self-police group has also started to operate. In each village, 5 guard robots patrol the village day and night, while the infantry fighting vehicles make a circle in the village once in the morning and evening. The self-police group composed of 5 soldiers from the Ruins Legion and 5 villagers also shouldered the duties of the police to mediate various conflicts in the village. Now let these villagers get used to it first, and then Chen plans to build automated plant factories and artificial meat factories in the village, and then start to hire villagers to carry out some livelihood projects. In fact, Xingfu village has now repaired the roads and houses under the leadership of the village chief Ganyu, and Chen naturally generously gave enough remuneration to the villagers who participated in the project. However, the village chiefs of Muhi village and Beiti village are relatively passive, but Chen is not in a hurry, and they are still needed now. After visiting this circle, more than half a day passed. After returning to the Nuwa base, Hank and Victor were not interested in other things. They asked for a car to go to the Black Wolf base, and were going to see the soldiers' drills. Bertha was very interested in the erosion of the human body by tiberium crystals, so she ran aside to look up information. The ghost has been talking to Red Queen 00001 to learn about the operation of the base. Beltway simply stayed in Xingfu village and did not come back. He went drinking with some villagers there. Here, Murphy's found Chan Yuyan directly. He seemed extremely excited, obviously thinking that this place is where he can really show his strengths. Your world. Count me in. Let's change this world together. Ha 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 ha. Make this world more beautiful. Establish a beautiful new order. After speaking, he handed over a USB flash drive. Chen Yuyan got the USB flash drive and scanned it directly. Scanning is complete. NE beta parasite technology has been added to the infinite base database. Can be researched after researching the NE alpha parasite technology. Wonderful. Chen Yuyan was secretly delighted, and saw that the stock of refined tiberium mine was almost the same, so he started the research of NE alpha parasite technology. I still have a prototype sample of the NE beta parasite. I will give it to you after returning to that world, and then you can start researching it immediately. But why are you so anxious to get the NE beta parasite? Murphy's asked. Because the tracker I brought over before ate some tiberium infected people, so the T-virus and tiberium in it started to react. I am worried that the NE alpha parasite can no longer control it. Chan Yuyan replied. Wait a minute, will the T-virus mutate with tiberium? Four Eyes is also a virus expert, and she also hurriedly asked. Chan Yuyan nodded and said, many of my B.O.Ws will lose their ability to move after they come into contact with tiberium. After those mutants are infected by the T-virus, their body muscles will become extremely developed, and they can still retain some basic sanity. Wang Jinsong came out of the laboratory and said, I have seen some of your T-virus samples before. This virus is still too weak in front of tiberium, and the virus cells will soon be eroded by tiberium and assimilation. But this virus is not without merit. During the process of being assimilated, it will release a large amount of bioenergy. Chen Yuyan nodded silently. When he was still in Raccoon City, he was bitten by a zombie. At first, he had to be injected with a T-virus neutralizer, but he didn't need it later. Moreover, he felt that his physical strength had also increased during that time. Not a lot. It seems that the T-virus was absorbed by the tiberium in his body. This is a very good direction. I think research in this area can be carried out. Maybe a stronger B.O.W can be developed. No matter what, Murphy's used to be the director of the Atlantic Research Institute, and he is still very sensitive to research. Actually, before researching this, I have a question. Four Eyes. Chen Yuyan asked. Four Eyes, trackers can use various weapons, and can accept hunting orders, and can identify the enemy and ourselves. The information entered by the NE alpha parasite? Yes. Four Eyes nodded. So the NE beta parasite can input more complicated command information, relatively speaking? Indeed. In that case, I have an idea. Chen Yuyan leaned closer to the Four Eyes, and deliberately leaned very close, almost whispering a few words into the ears of the Four Eyes. The faint scent of perfume on Ziyan's body came to his nostrils, but right after Chen was elbowed hard by her in the abdomen. There was a hint of complacency in the corners of the Four Eyes and mouth, and then he said, "Theoretically, your plan does have this possibility." Chen handed her the USB flash drive containing the NE beta research data, and said, "It just so happens that you are also in the direction of researching nemesis parasites, maybe you can give it a try. I need people and equipment. Your laboratory in Texas can only conduct the most basic research." Four Eyes said, "I can think of a way." Murphy's said, "The Atlantic Research Institute was just closed by Umbrella, and the equipment inside hadn't had time to be transported away. As long as we occupy there first, we can have a state-of-the-art the Research Institute. And I can also find some former researchers to join, as long as I have money." But the problem of money, Chen Yuyan naturally knew that he had received millions of dollars from Umbrella, which was not enough at all. He pointed to the guard robot patrolling nearby and asked, "What do you think of this thing? Can it be sold in the US? I can ask my best friend." Murphy's thought for a while and said, "Besides, if we can occupy the Atlantic Research Institute, there is a secret in it. Before this secret can be reported to the high level, they will start it against me." "Secret? What secret?" Chen Yuyan asked. "We found a rare deep-sea fish in the deep sea of the Atlantic Ocean, and then one of my scientists injected the T-virus into this fish, and it actually mutated. Not only did the fish mutate, but even the cells of the T-virus itself it has also mutated. If in-depth research is carried out, it may be a new variant of the T-virus." Murphy said triumphantly. Chen Yuyan's eyes lit up, "A variant of the T-virus. Then, how much do you know about this new variant?" "I don't understand at all. At that time, I was shopping in Los Angeles with my best friend." Murphy's was not ashamed at all, but justified. Chen Yuyan touched his forehead and said, "Okay, I'll talk about these things later. Now I plan to go to Iron Hammer Town and send a soldier there for cyborg transformation. Which one of you wants to go? Thanks for the 1000 starting point coin rewarded by the prison broken Demon King Han Tianxin. Thank you for the 500 starting point coins that Gust of Wind rewarded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 173. 172 Hammertown. Wow, ha 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 ha. Going shopping? Count me in. Beltway's voice was deafening in the communicator, and this guy sounded obviously drunk. Chen Yuyan frowned. "The wine I gave to Xingfu village is enough for the entire village for a month. How much did you drink?" "Ha ha 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 ha. Not too much, not too much, just enough to get me excited." Beltway laughed. Chen Yuyan subconsciously wanted to refuse, but on second thought, anyway, this time, he was going to test the trend of Iron Hammer Town, and if he brought such a drunk and made him make a fuss, maybe some troubles would sink into the water. Anyway, they all drove their tanks to their door, so it wouldn't be too much to bring a drunk over there, right? Then wait at the entrance of the village and find a villager who is about the same size as you and ask for a casual dress to wear." Chen Yuyan said, turning off the communication and looking at the others, "What about you?" "Go, why not?" Murphy's was eager to try. Chen Yuyan rolled his eyes and said coldly, "I won't go." "Don't you want to see the towns in this world?" Chen Yuyan asked. "I'm looking forward to going there with you." "Are you looking forward to it?" "Well, let's go." Four Eyes simply agreed. Yi glanced around with a bit of hostility, and moved closer to Chen Yuyan's side. "Father, go, can I? Don't run around like last time, I will take you there." "Well, don't run around." Yi nodded heavily. Looper also expressed that she wanted to go and see. For her, she would definitely not directly intervene in the war in this world. It would be okay to help Chunyuan and the others in the world of Resident Evil with logistics. With such a mentality, she is rather curious about the customs of this world. The two jeeps drove towards the industrial area southwest of the ruined city. Chunyuan drove the previous car, and Murphy's, Looper, Yi, and Xian sat behind. The car in the back is an MATV military all-terrain off-road vehicle. This car is not armed, but it is still a super awesome off-road vehicle, and its performance is a whole level higher than that of a Hummer. This was a gift from Chunyuan to Drago. He drove the car excitedly, while two nurses took care of Luo Cheng and sat in the back. The cargo compartment contained the Believer 2 cyborg prosthetic, covered with canvas. The two vehicles had just walked to the Sancha intersection at the entrance of Xingfu village, but they only saw the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle parked in the middle of the road. Beltway was sitting on the turret of the infantry fighting vehicle, wearing a very strange coarse cloth and sunglasses. When he saw Chunyuan and the others driving over, he waved his hands excitedly and shouted, "Ha ha ha ha! Hurry up! Here here!" Chunyuan slammed on the brakes and stopped in front of the AMX-10P. He jumped off and cursed, "I'm going to your uncle's Beltway. Who the hell told you to come here in an armored vehicle? Hi! The other cars don't drive very well. We still need to find a stronger one." Beltway saw Drago driving the MATV, his eyes lit up and said, "Hi. I said last time, what do you mean by asking me to get you an MATV to drive around? I got it here for you. Come on, buddy, come down and let me drive it for a while." Drago glanced at him, and said a word lightly, "Get lost. Don't be so stingy, you come down, I'll drive." Beltway had already walked over and opened the door on Drago's side to drag him down. Drago is not a good stubble either, he just kicked him in the face. Then there was a dusty hand-to-hand battle between the two. One is a senior mercenary, and the other is an ace in the elite special forces. This fight was extremely lively. Chunyuan and the others also jumped out of the car to watch the fun, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Drago really wasn't Beltway's opponent if he didn't take advantage of the mechanical transformation on his body. The latter was about the size of a bear, and he didn't even sway from ordinary punches and kicks. And as an elite trump card, Beltway's fighting skills are also quite powerful. If it weren't for the mechanical transformation on Drago's body, he would not be afraid of being beaten, he would have been pinned to the ground and beaten violently by now. Seeing that he was almost venting, and it was a bit of a blow to Drago, Chunyuan walked over and kicked Beltway's huge body away with a kick. "Okay. Get in your damn armored vehicle, let's go." Chunyuan pretended to be fierce and dropped a sentence. Beltway had been beaten up by Chunyuan several times before, but he was quite obedient. He got up and got into the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle to start the engine. Half an hour later, this slightly arrogant convoy stopped at the gate of Iron Hammer Town. This used to be an industrial area, and now you can still hear the sound of machinery running inside, and white smoke billows continuously from several towering chimneys. A city wall made of concrete fragments surrounded the town, and there was a sentry tower every 100 meters or so, with searchlights hanging on it, but it was not turned on during the day. On both sides of the gate in the middle, two bunkers were piled up with sandbags, and two HCB heavy machine guns were erected on them. There was even a tank bunker next to it. Behind the concrete fortifications, an M2F light tank was hidden. A 75mm anti-tank gun protruded from the firing port, and the black muzzle pointed at Chunyuan's convoy. Chunyuan jumped out of the car, came to the sentinel at the gate and said, "We want to go into the city." "What are you doing in the city?" The sentinel said coldly. "There is a patient who wants to be sent to the hospital here." "Your patients want to drive tanks when they see a doctor?" The sentinel asked back. "I can't help it, Our family only needs a car. Chen Yuyan spread his hands to play a rascal. In this case, you can't go in. The sentinel said firmly. Then tell your boss, call Lin Huo, right? Let him know that the people from the Ruin Legion are looking for him. Chen Yuyan said. I'm under no obligation to report for a guy who comes to our door with a tank. Then I'll blow up this place and go in by myself. You should be responsible for the consequences of the war between the two families, right? Chen Yuyan still had a bright smile on his face when he said this. The sentry's expression changed, and he obediently went to the sentry box to make a phone call. A minute later, the sentry came out and said, Major Lin invites you to go to his mansion for an interview. After speaking, he pressed the button and opened the door. Driving into Hammer Town, the town is well planned, with factories, residential areas, and commercial areas clearly separated, and the houses were built later and did not rely on the ruins of the previous city. This makes the whole town look orderly, and the atmosphere of doom is reduced a lot. Chen Yuyan asked Looper and Drago to send Luo Cheng to the hospital for reformation, and then Murphys and Beltway went wherever they wanted. Then he asked Yi if he wanted to go shopping as well. Since entering the city, Yi had been looking around like a curious baby, and when he heard Chen Yuyan's words, he immediately fell into a conflict. She wanted to stick to Chen Yuyan all the time, but also wanted to go shopping. Later, Chen Yuyan smiled and asked Murphys to take Yi to play, while he and Xian went to the tall and gorgeous villa in the center of the town. Thanks to Tommy Mavericks for the 1888 rating points. Thank you for the 588 rating point of What is a Reward for Life. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 174. 173 Shopping. Chen Yuyan and Xian drove to the villa, and their jeep was immediately surrounded by a group of heavily armed soldiers in gray uniforms. And it is worth mentioning that on the chests of these soldiers, there is a triangular mark with a black frame on a red background, in which is a black scorpion tail. This is the mark of the Brotherhood of Nod. Chen Yuyan's eyes narrowed, that is to say, the warlord Lin Huo here is from Nod's side. This was also the first time Chen Yuyan saw Nod's army, and even the last time the cold-faced officer came over, maybe it was to deceive others or something. Anyway, they didn't have badges on them. This made Chen Yuyan always feel that Nod might be far away from him, and this place might really be a place where birds don't lay eggs. But now, that doesn't seem to be the case. These soldiers just surrounded them, but did not point their guns at them, so neither Chen Yuyan nor Xian drew their guns. But the four eyes are still on guard with their hands on their waists, a pair of slender phoenix eyes slowly sweeping over the people around them. Chen Yuyan noticed that her hand was on the left waist, where she inserted a syringe filled with T-virus, and on the right was a pistol. Don't ask him why he knows how to release the four-eyed gun, he just knows it anyway. But then again, I prepared the T-virus when I first arrived, this petite girl just wants to make trouble. Chen Yuyan couldn't help but feel ashamed. Soon, the cold-faced officer came over and said to Chen Yuyan very coldly, "Come in, Major Lin is waiting for you upstairs." Chen Yuyan sat on the hood of the car carelessly, but replied, "Oh, well, I'm a little road crazy, I can't find my way." "I'll take you up there," said the officer. "No, you are too ugly, I can't walk when I see you." Chen Yuyan shook his head. The officer clenched his fists tightly, obviously enduring great anger, and he said a word through his teeth, "You should pay attention to your identity." Chen Yuyan narrowed his eyes dangerously, and said with a fake smile, "Then tell me, what is my identity?" "Of course it's a friend." "Ha ha ha ha." A hearty laugh came, only to see a young man wearing a Nod black military uniform and a pair of glasses came out, and laughed with open arms. "You are Lin Huo?" Chen Yuyan asked knowingly. "No, I'm Lin Huo, commander of the 113B Light Armored Battalion, major of the Nod Brotherhood's 9th War Zone." Lin Huo said proudly, "This is my adjutant, Captain Jinshan. Chen Yuyan smiled, but did not shake hands with Lin Huo. He said with a slight smile, Chen Yuyan, the leader of the Legion of Ruin, this is Shan Yi, my companion. Lin Huo nodded, this is very good, he, I didn't know when there was an additional legion next to our Iron Hammer town. That's right, I also think it's very pleasant to see Nod's regular army in such a place. Chen Yuyanpa said with a half smile. At this time, Hammer Town Hospital. Drago is more familiar with this place. He first went up and called a few nurses, and came down with a stretcher to lift Luo Cheng up. Then he explained his purpose to the doctor. The doctor was a little embarrassed when he heard that he was going to do a cyborg prosthesis transplant, and asked, what kind of cyborg prosthesis are you planning to transplant? Looper said, Believer 2, we pay with liquid tiberium. The doctor shook his head and said, it's not a matter of payment. Believer's 2 cyborg prosthesis is too complicated for us to do here. You have to go to the hospital in Torch City. Torch City, Looper frowned. The doctor looked at Luo Cheng's condition again, and said, or let him be hospitalized here first, and deal with the burns on his body first. Then it will be more convenient for you to send him there after you find the way. Drago and Looper were not familiar with Luo Cheng at first, so they just got rid of a burden when they heard the words. So he nodded and agreed, handed over 10 kilograms of liquid tiberium to the hospital, and after Drago signed it, the two of them left. During the whole process, Looper didn't notice that he had no communication barriers with these people. Squeak, the car stopped, Drago jumped off the MATV, and walked into a bar called Nightfire, which was his favorite place during his time in Hammertown. Asked for a bottle of red wine, Drago sat in the corner and drank alone, while listening to the poor singer on stage. Suddenly, there was only a loud bang, and a huge body kicked open the door and walked in very arrogantly. Everyone in the bar looked towards the door with unkind expressions, and then they became a little dazed. All I saw was a burly man walking in and yelling, "Give me 5 bottles of red wine." As he spoke, he picked up one of the drinkers and threw it aside like an eagle catching a chicken, and he sat on his seat. Hearing this voice, Drago felt his eyelids twitch wildly. When he turned his head, he saw Beltway sitting there with a golden knife. He looked around with provocative eyes, and suddenly burst into laughter. "Hey! I thought someone was going to fight with me. I didn't expect that there are a bunch of cowards here. Ha 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 ha." Everyone immediately turned their eyes away from him, drank their own drinks, and a few people rushed to check out and run away. Drago was speechless for a while. He looked at the triumphant Beltway and then at the tank he parked directly at the door, which could be clearly seen by almost everyone, and cursed secretly, "Idiot! This, what?" Yi stood at the door of a small shop, pointing to the things inside, without much expression on her face. "This is a toy car." Murphy's replied. "This, what?" Yi went to another store and pointed to another thing. "This is pie, eat it." Murphy's looked very patient now. He looked at Yi with the eyes of admiring the artwork, and he answered patiently no matter what Yi asked him. "Here, clothes." Yi walked to the door of a clothing store, pointed at the clothes at the door, tilted his head and said, "Dad, do you like it? Do you want it? If you can dress more beautifully, your father will definitely like it." Murphy's replied, "I want clothes." A happy expression appeared on Yi's face, and his eyes were fixed on the long dress in front of him, which was actually not very good looking. Murphy's looked at the boss next to him, and said arrogantly, "Boss, take out your most beautiful clothes and give this beautiful lady a try." When the boss saw the business coming, he quickly took out a striped skirt. When Murphy saw it, it was as if he saw a pile of cow dung, and he waved his hands vigorously in disgust and said, "This kind of garbage, take it away, take it away." Hearing this, the boss's face darkened immediately, but he still took out another checkered shirt. How about this one? It was just delivered from Torch City. Are you collecting junk here? Don't shake such an ugly thing in front of me. I'll throw up. Murphy's looked disgusted. The boss got angry immediately. He threw away his clothes and shouted, "You're here to make a fuss, aren't you? This shitty place can give you good clothes to wear. Don't pretend to be here. You have that ability, you go to the blue zone. If you don't have the ability to pretend, why are you pretending? Get out." Murphy's face suddenly darkened, and his expression even looked a little hideous. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 175. 174 Two Little Foxes. You killed the Junkrat gang? In the spacious and luxurious living room of the villa, Lin Huo sat on the classic sofa and asked with a frown. That's right, now the entire ruins in the south of the city have been cleaned up. However, I don't recommend ordinary people to enter there, as there may be some danger. Chen Yuyan casually picked up an apple on the fruit plate in front of him, and groaned. One bite. Lin Huo leaned back on the backrest and meditated. After a while, he said, being able to destroy the Junkrat gang shows that you are not weak. According to common sense, I should also cooperate with you. But, you really shouldn't have wiped out the Junkrat gang. Oh. How do you say it? Chen Yuyan asked knowingly. Because the Junkrat gang is the Forsaken, and behind them, there is a very terrifying existence, General Iron Dragon. Lin Huo said, looked at Chen Yuyan's expression, and sneered, it seems that you know, so at this moment you came to look for me. Could it be that you were worried that Tai Long would come to settle accounts with you, so you hoped for my help? If Tai Long comes, I will naturally deal with it. And I came to you just to discuss some business with you. Chen Yuyan replied with a normal face. Lin Huo actually knew about the Forsaken and Tai Long, which made him his negotiations are somewhat passive. But it's okay, negotiation is nothing more than an exchange of benefits, and he knows this better than anyone else. Heh, Lin Huo smiled contemptuously, about business. Why should I discuss business with a person who is about to be killed by Tai Long? You are not a regular army of Nod, you are just a counterfeit. Chen Yuyan said suddenly. Lin Huo was still sneering, you want to go against Kane's will? Chen Yuyan threw away the apple cores that had been eaten, and took another grape for Xian, and then said, Kane's will is omnipresent, but I don't think it will come to a point where you will commit yourself to Nod even if you fake it. To the point. Let's just open up and say, if you're really not controlled here, it's not going to be the case here. Indeed, from Wang Ji, Ho Xiangyang, and Wang Jinsong, Chen Yuyan already has a certain understanding of Kane and Nod. For a person like Kane who is extremely charismatic and controls his subordinates through a form similar to religion, it is absolutely impossible for him to have only military badges in his control area. Lin Huo smiled non-committally, spread his hands and said, and then? Whether I am Nod or not has nothing to do with whether you are about to be killed by the Iron Dragon or not. Chen Yuyan did not answer directly, but said to himself, Tai Hammer Town has a permanent population of about 5,000 people. If you calculate it this way, your army will not exceed 1,000 people. And you have a light M2F as for the tank force, which is dominated by tanks. You have not kept the number of tanks too secret, and many people know that it is about 40 to 50. Lin Huo didn't speak, but changed his posture, raised his legs and looked at him coldly. A somewhat strange smile appeared on Chen Yuyan's face. However, if I try my best not to count losses, I can kill your army. Well, what I'm talking about is your losses, not mine. Did you start dreaming in broad daylight? Lin Huo laughed dumbly. In the compartment of my jeep, there is something, let your hands go down and have a look. Chen Yuyan said. Lin Huo spread his hands and said, whatever, I have plenty of time, anyway, it's not me who is facing the threat of Tai Long. He waved his hand at Jinshan. Jin Shan immediately went downstairs. Chen Yuyan, on the other hand, took advantage of this opportunity to eat fruit vigorously. In such a place, there is actually a supply of fruit. It seems that the world of Command and Conquer is not as barren as he imagined. After a while, Jin Shan came up. His face was not very good looking. He bent down and said something softly to Lin Huo. Chen Yuyan smiled and said, "Why so mysterious? Isn't it just a 105mm caliber high explosive grenade? What can just a grenade explain?" Lin Huo was still stubborn. LG-1 105mm caliber light howitzer, guess how many I have? Although my artillery is not very good, but for such a big target in Iron Hammer Town, I think they can still catch a few shots, right? Chen Yuyan said, in fact, he really only made such a cannonball, and it was made on the spur of the moment while driving, and it was sent directly to the jeep compartment using the teleportation function. The last time he scanned the data of this French-made LG-1 light howitzer at the African warlord in the world of Resident Evil, the level 2 base can produce it, but he has not built it. Because the artillery moved too much, and it was definitely more complicated to fire the artillery accurately than to drive a tank. At that time, his enemy was the Junkrat gang, and there was really no use for the artillery. Lin Huo finally became cautious, and he asked slowly, "What do you want? Tell me." "I am facing the threat of Iron Dragon, that's right. But now there is such a choice in front of you. First, we each have our own way, and each side of the road is facing the sky. Then whether I can defeat Iron Dragon is my business. But how the winner between me and Tai Long will treat you, you can only resign yourself to fate." Chen Yuyan said. "Then what about the second one?" Lin Huo asked with a livid face. "Second, we cooperate. I have what you want, and you have what I want. And no matter who wants to eat the other, we both have to be choked. So, it's better to be stronger together. Wait until the Iron Dragon. If you really hit the door, maybe both you and I will have stronger power?" Lin Huo nodded slightly, and then said, "Yes, I agree to cooperate. But what can you offer? What do you want?" Chen Yuyan asked. "Do you have the LG-1 light howitzer? This is a French artillery before the last World War. It has excellent performance, is very light, and has good maneuverability. I want this kind of artillery, at least 10 pieces, with at least 1,000 rounds of ammunition. And the above. I also want the spider robot you used to dismantle my tank last time. In addition, the M2F light tank is no longer suitable for the current needs, and I need a stronger tank." Lin Huo directly said a series of require. Chen Yuyan said sarcastically, "You are really welcome, you have never thought about it. If I really have these things, then why would you make a deal with me?" Lin Huo shook his head. "I have also investigated you, your territory is limited to the ruined city, and the 3 villages add up to more than 1,000 people, and the Black Wolf tribe has maintained good physical fitness for a long time. Those who are suitable for serving as soldiers have been recruited to be his subordinates. You first eliminate the Black Wolf tribe, and then go to war with the Junkrat gang. You can use no more than 100 soldiers, but I believe you can get very powerful weapons and equipment, otherwise you wouldn't be able to defeat the Junkrat gang." As he said that, he approached the table with a meaningful smile on his lips. "So, I have people, you have equipment, and we can indeed cooperate. So, you have long wanted to cooperate with me?" Chen Yuyan asked. "Aren't you?" Lin Huo asked back, holding out his hand. Chen Yuyan also reached out to hold him tightly, nodded and said, "I can sell you 3 horror robots first, and then I will tell you what I need. In fact, they are all miscellaneous, and they are some daily necessities." "Oh. So that kind of mechanical spider is called a horror robot? It's really scary," Lin Huo suddenly said. Hee, it's the first time you've seen this kind of robot, so I'm a little surprised." The smile on Chunyuyen's face was also somewhat unpredictable. Is this kind of robot very common? Lin Huo asked knowingly. Just as the two were testing each other, a soldier ran in angrily and shouted, "Major Lin! It's not good. There's a tank, a tank. Rampage in the city." Lin Huo stood up abruptly, with an angry look on his face. "Chunyuyen, is this your man?" Chunyuyen scolded Beltway, a guy who didn't accomplish much, and replied, let's go and see together. Thank you for the 10,000 starting point coin rewarded by Shiliang. Thanks to Silent Sky and Ao Ziobai for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 176. 175 The Chosen One. An hour ago, in the Night Fire Bar, Beltway provoked a circle, and found that no one dared to provoke him. He was in a good mood, picked up a bottle of red wine and gurgled for a while. And Drago looked at him, and he was beaten up by him just before, and he was upset, so he naturally ignored him, bowed his head and continued to drink. This bar was originally a place where mercenaries haunted, fish and dragons mixed together. Most of the people here were blood-licking people, and there were all kinds of people. All I saw was in another corner, a man with several scars on his face gave a wink to a subordinate next to him, and that subordinate understood and ran out quietly. Then the big man patted the back of a girl with heavy makeup next to him. The girl smiled knowingly, and walked towards Beltway with a wine glass in her hand. She directly pulled the chair next to Beltway and leaned on it affectionately. Brother, you were so domineering just now. I have never seen such a mighty man like you. Where are you from? As she spoke, she stretched out her fingers and drew circles on Beltway's rock-like pectoral muscles. Beltway took a sip of his wine, clicked his lips, squinted his eyes and looked at the girl, curled his lips and said, I find girls 10,000 times prettier than you in the broken bars in the suburbs of New York. Get out of here. The girl's face suddenly looked extremely ugly. She wanted to explode, but seeing the iron-like muscles on Beltway's body, she shrank back again. However, she looked at the scarred man who asked her to come over again, only to see that he had a ferocious face and made a gesture of cutting his throat viciously on her neck. Seeing this gesture, the girl's heart trembled. She threw a glass of wine and splashed Beltway in the face, then rushed forward and scratched and bit him, cursing, you. What kind of onion? I don't even give my mother face. My mother is fighting with you today. However, seeing that Beltway was unmoved, she simply tore off her clothes and screamed loudly, help. Feel I? Beltway stood up suddenly, looked around, then walked towards the scarred man with a grin on his face, and kicked the table in front of him into pieces. You think I'm stupid, don't you? You think I don't know if you're behind it? Ha 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 ha. Beautiful. There's finally a fight today. As he spoke, he clenched his fists fiercely, and there was a crackling sound from his knuckles. A minion next to him took the lead, smashed the wine bottle with a click, and stabbed towards Beltway with a sharp broken wine bottle. Beltway didn't even look at him, and slapped him with a backhand, and the little boy hit the wall with a bang and fell unconscious. Just when he was about to do a big job, suddenly there was a roar of an engine outside the door. Beltway's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly turned around, only to see that the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle he drove over had been activated and driven away. You should know that this kind of military vehicle is no better than a private car, but it doesn't need a key. He suddenly became angry from the heart and turned to the gallbladder, and he was about to rush out regardless of the people around him. But the scarred man would not let go of this opportunity. He commanded all his subordinates to rush towards Beltway like moths to a flame. As soon as he saw the tank being driven away, Drago also stood up at the same time, looked at Beltway, who was unparalleled among the group of minions with red eyes, and cursed angrily, "You are an idiot." After speaking, he rushed out of the door, jumped on the MATV all-terrain lightning protection off-road vehicle that Chunyuan provided him, and chased after the rampaging AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle. Seeing Drago rushing out, Beltway knew the truth and couldn't help laughing out loud. He picked up a little guy with one hand, swung it up and smashed it in the crowd. And in the business district on the other side, Murphy's de Duval's anger has reached its peak. No one has ever dared to question his aesthetics in front of him like this. But he still retained the last of his reason, turned his head and said to Yi, who was watching coldly, "Let's go, Miss Yi, don't waste time on this garbage dump." Yi looked at the furious clothing store owner with interest, and seemed very interested in his reaction. But after hearing what Murphy's said, and remembering that Chunyuan asked her to follow this uncle, he still nodded. But they wanted to leave, but the clothing store owner was unwilling to let them go. He stepped forward to stop them, and said sharply, "What do you mean? You came here to make trouble? Stay and speak clearly. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving." Murphy said coldly, "I want to go, you really can't keep me. You humming sissy, how dare you drag me here?" The owner of the clothing store yelled. However, his sissy sentence directly overturned Murphy's inverse scales, and his face suddenly became a little ferocious, and he said in a low voice, "Miss Yi, please stand back first, I will deal with some garbage, come here." After finishing speaking, he straightened his neckline, suddenly drew out his pistol and pointed it at the boss, and said coldly, "May the glory of the new world shine on you." Just as he was about to pull the trigger, there was a loud shout from the crowd, "Stop!" Before the words fell, a flash of lightning suddenly flashed and hit Murphy's gun with a slap. He suddenly felt a numbness in his palm, and the pistol dropped from his hand. Murphy's clutched his completely paralyzed arm, and suddenly looked across. All I saw was a man in a black windbreaker and a big brimmed hat standing there, still keeping his palms pointed at himself. The man glanced at Murphy's and said coldly, "It is suspected of using deadly force in Hammertown, come with me." At this time, the melon eaters onlookers backed away one after another, and some people were saying, "Be careful. The chosen one is here. Don't mess with them. That person is really unlucky, he actually provoked the chosen one." The owner of the clothing store, who was scared out of his wits by the pistol just now, saw the man approaching, immediately walked over and said loudly, "The chosen one. Fortunately you are here. This man is causing trouble here, and even wants to kill people." The chosen one looked at Murphy's coldly, and said again, "Come with me, don't let me hurt you." As he spoke, he raised his hand, only to see a ball of lightning appear in the palm of his hand. Murphy's couldn't help but took 2 steps back, with a hint of fear in his eyes. He was struck by that bolt of lightning just now, and now his arm is still paralyzed. And this lightning is much faster than a gun. But he still stood firmly and stood in front of Yi. He didn't see it, but now Yi is watching the movements of the so-called chosen one intently. In her emerald green pupils, countless complicated lines suddenly appeared. It seems like countless circuit lines. Suddenly, Yi pushed Murphy's aside, stepped forward, and said very flatly, "Follow me." Perhaps seeing Yi's beautiful appearance, the chosen one softened his tone and said, "Miss, this is none of your business. If you are this person's companion, then you should know." Come with me." Yi interrupted him immediately without waiting for him to finish speaking. A hint of anger rose in the heart of the chosen one, and he said sharply, "If you want to interfere with official duties, then you also come with me. Go to the Public Security Bureau." Yi ignored him at all, but approached him step by step. I don't know why, but the chosen one only felt extremely strong pressure, and he couldn't help but take a step back. Finding that the situation was wrong, he shouted loudly, "Stop! Don't get close. Otherwise, I'll be rude. But Yi is still moving forward. The chosen one had no choice. He raised his electrified hand and said loudly, "You asked for this." After speaking, he made a gesture, and the surrounding air began to charge a little, and then he raised his hand and pointed, "Tremor electric shock. Be careful." Murphy's yelled, but was a step too late. A tiny bolt of lightning struck Yi instantly. However, Yi was completely unmoved. After the bolt of lightning struck her, it immediately turned into countless tiny electric currents and spread around her body. Yi kept staring at the chosen one. She didn't say a word. The countless circuit-like patterns in her eyes kept spinning, as if she wanted to swallow people up. Then she made the same gesture as the chosen one, and then raised her finger. "Tremor electric shock." Snapped. A tiny bolt of lightning struck directly on the chosen one. "Don't mention it, I was almost quarantined today. I have been living in my father-in-law's house for the past few months, and today I am going to move back to my own community, but when the security guard at the gate saw me carrying my bags, he blocked me, and asked me one by one what my job was. Where did I come from, where did I go, what places have I been to? Someone can prove that I am not, and I have to go to the community to get a stamp to prove that I used to live in my father-in-law's community." I fainted. It's too miserable. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 177. 176 Reach an Agreement. The Chosen One was unprepared for the fact that Yi could imitate his spells, and was struck by lightning with a click. His whole body trembled and foamed at the mouth, and he fell to the ground and twitched uncontrollably. Seeing that Yi actually used the ability of the Chosen One, and even defeated the Chosen One, the surrounding crowd felt scared. With a yell, they turned around and fled in all directions, and the clothing store owner was the fastest. Only then did Murphy's come back to his senses, and he yelled at Yi, "Miss Yi, run! Go to Chenyuyan's side." Upon hearing Chenyuyan's name, Yi's eyes lit up immediately, and he turned and ran away without hesitation. Coincidentally, they were going in the same direction as the clothing store owner was fleeing. Unexpectedly, I didn't run a few steps, only to see the owner of the clothing store with a livid face, running back at a faster speed than before. Before Murphy's could react, there was a terrible sound of the engine, and with the roar, a tank rushed out like a runaway dinosaur. K. Where did the tank come from? Murphy's expression changed drastically, and he was immediately kicked away by Yi. Seeing the tanks roaring past him, he finally recognized that this tank was actually the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle they drove over. But now the infantry fighting vehicle seemed to be drunk, rampaging around, and knocked down several shops. The destructive power of the tank is simply unmatched, and everything in its path is crushed to pieces. A few seconds later, Drago drove over in the MATV off-road vehicle, and he yelled at Yi, "Quick! Help me catch up with that tank." As soon as the words fell, Yi grabbed the back door of the MATV, turned over and stood firmly on the roof. The off-road vehicle did not slow down, and followed the tank and ran away. A puff of smoke and dust billowed past, but now Murphy's stood here alone. The security personnel from Hammer Town arrived quickly, and they raised their submachine guns at Murphy's. Murphy's rolled his eyes, raised his hands and said, "I ask to see your leader." But he didn't wait long, and soon, a jeep rushed up, and Chenyuyan's car followed closely behind. Lin Huo turned over and got out of the car in front, but when he saw Murphy's, he was obviously taken aback. Then he saw a messy street, and suddenly became angry. He walked over and yelled at Chenyuyan, who had just jumped out of the car, "Is this the sincerity you have shown? Driving a tank and rampaging on my street. Is this the result you want? If you don't give me a explain, then go to your mother. Let's go straight to war." Chenyuyan laughed twice, and didn't refute, but said, "Stop the tank first, then we'll talk." Lin Huo was still angry, he snorted coldly and jumped into the car to go after him. However, at this moment, a loud noise was suddenly heard ahead. Immediately afterwards, even on their side, bursts of smoke and dust could be seen rising into the air and spreading in all directions. Chen Yuyan and Lin Huo looked at each other, and then exchanged colors with Murphy's. Murphy's reluctantly made a gesture of invitation to the place where the dust was rising. Chen Yuyan also understood what he meant, so he also got in the car and prepared to go there. Murphy's was about to get into the car just now, but the guard next to him yelled, "Stop!" Chen Yuyan looked at Lin Huo and said, "He is mine." Lin Huo glanced back and forth between Murphy's and Chen Yuyan for a while, and waved at the guard. Although his gaze was well concealed, Chen Yuyan still noticed the details, and his heart moved slightly. The two vehicles drove towards the place where the collision occurred, and they found that the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle had crashed into a residential building. And Yi and Drago are opening the hatch and dragging a person out of the cab. Seeing Chen Yuyan approaching, Yi shouted happily, "Father!" and ran all the way to throw himself into his arms, causing Lin Huo to look sideways at Chen Yuyan. Seeing Chen Yuyan, who seemed to be at most 6 or 7 years older than Yi, Lin Huo couldn't help but wonder how his daughter got here. Couldn't it be a woman? At this time, Drago also brought the man driving the tank over, threw it at the feet of Chen Yuyan and Lin Huo with a plop, and said, "The guys found a third-rate call girl to get Beltway drunk, and they took the opportunity to think about it. To steal a tank. He didn't forget to hack Beltway at this time." Chen Yuyan looked over, but the one lying on the ground moaning was just a bum. He smiled and said to Lin Huo, "Major Lin, the law and order here is not very good. Why do people even dare to steal tanks?" Lin Huo also responded with a smile and said, "Even if you lose the tank, the people under your command really disappoint me." "Then how to deal with this matter?" Chen Yuyan asked. "The tank is yours." Lin Huo replied. "The person is yours." Chen Yuyan refused to admit it. "Why, you seem to mean that you don't want me to pursue this matter. I think you crashed my tank, and this matter should be investigated." Lin Huo squinted his eyes and stared at Chen Yuyan, and Chen Yuyan confronted him without showing any weakness. The expressions of the two became more and more serious, and they just stared at each other for a long time. Suddenly, Yi said beside him, "Father, there is light spinning in his body." "Light?" Chen Yuyan frowned, looked at Lin Huo, and suddenly smiled and said, "This is actually not a tank, but an AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle. It is equipped with a 90mm multifunctional artillery and can provide long-range fire support." "How about it? How many?" "Its firepower is much stronger than the M2F." Lin Huo also suddenly laughed. "Why, you want to use this tank to pay off the debt? If you really plan to do that, we won't be able to cooperate." Chen Yuyan sneered. "Okay. Then let's continue talking in another place." Lin Huo made a gesture of invitation. "I'll call some of my partners too." Chen Yuyan also sent a text message to Looper, asking her to come over, but he didn't contact Beltway alone. After meeting with Looper, they turned off the communicator directly. They went back to the villa and continued to talk about cooperation. Only then did Chen Yuyan know that the business here in Hammer Town is mainly in two aspects: recycled concrete and tiberium mines to refine fuel, and in addition to recycling scrap metal from the ruins and melting them into metal blocks are sold. In addition, there is also a production line that can produce Scorpion I assault rifles. Currently, the technology of directly using tiberium ore as fuel is relatively high-end, so in fact, the main energy used in most areas is still fuel oil. The main source of fuel is to use tiberium ore to refine it. Although in Chen Yuyan's opinion this is a waste, it is also the most common practice now that tiberium mining engines are not yet popular. There are also some tiberium mining areas around Iron Hammer Town. Although the scale is not as large as the one controlled by Chen Yuyan, They can also provide a relatively stable source of tiberium mines. So in fact, compared with the former Black Wolf tribe and Xingfu village, Iron Hammer Town is in a state of wanting nothing. No wonder the two places are basically in a state of no communication. But now, Chen was about to establish this communication channel. What he was eyeing was not the population resources of Hammer Town, and he already had some solutions for this. What he really needs is to open a window for foreign exchanges through Hammer Town. Moreover, the production of recycled concrete in Iron Hammer Town is also very useful. Chen Yuyan plans to hire a construction team here to help the three villages under his banner to carry out infrastructure construction. For example, the construction of residential buildings, such as the laying of roads and so on. Naturally, it was impossible to use the refined tiberium as the bargaining chip. Chen Yuyan had a little bit of this stuff, and it was basically used up. However, Lin Huo didn't have much demand for tiberium. Chen Yuyan intends to sell some unused weapons and equipment directly to Lin Huo, such as the AMX-10P and AMX VSI infantry fighting vehicles, as well as the LG-1 light howitzer and terrorist robots, which are not enough to reverse the balance of strength between the two sides. Weapons and equipment, of course, step by step, it is impossible to sell too much at once. Anyway, strengthening Lin Huo's strength is also good for Chen Yuyan himself. When facing pressure from Tai Long in the future, he will also pull Tai Hammer Town into his chariot. In fact, after carefully analyzing the situation in his sphere of influence, Chen Yuyan felt that it was not a good idea to start the conquest mode directly against Iron Hammer Town. As he said before, what he really cares about is the loss of Hammer Town if the two sides go to war. He himself doesn't care, B.O.W can charge directly, but in this way, the civilians in Iron Hammer Town will definitely suffer heavy casualties. What he lacks most now is the population. In this way, if Hammer Town is really captured, the final population will not reach the 5,000 people required by the mission. Anyway, now he is not in a hurry to travel to a new world. There are still a lot of things in the world of Resident Evil that have not been dealt with, and a lot of resources that have not been digested. As for advancing to the Silver Group, there's no need to worry about it. Chen Yuyan and Drago also talked about it before. After all, this mercenary also traveled all over the world and traveled to many places. He also learned that the ruined city is located in the Yellow Zone. In fact, the population in the Yellow Zone is very large, but it is also very mobile. Often when there is a war here, people go to other places, or simply build a settlement by themselves. In this case, if the ruined city can be built, it can still absorb enough people. It was getting late, and Chen Yuyan and Lin Huo had almost chatted. Counting the time, the 24 hours for summoning the Wolf Pack team was approaching. Chen Yuyan said goodbye directly, and then set foot on the road back. At this time, Beltway had already fought all the way from the bar to the alley on the edge of Hammer Town. He dressed roughly like a bull, looked at the punks lying around him, and suddenly came to his senses. Fu*K. Didn't I come here to shop? Thanks to book friend 201912010945166697 for the reward of 200 starting coins. Thank you for the 100 starting point coins that I love for one tip. Too much time has been delayed today, and I moved and looked for community stamps everywhere, and I didn't start coding until 6 o'clock. There are only 2 updates today. This chapter is 3,000 words. It can be regarded as making up for the content. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 178. 177 What generation do you belong to? Selectively forgetting Beltway in Hammer Town, Chen Yuyan and the others drove back directly. On the way, Chen Yuyan asked Murphy's what happened to them, and Murphy's also told him that Yi could send lightning. Yi, what did you mean when you said that there was a light spinning around Lin Huo? Chen Yuyan asked Yi. He, like that person, has light, Even brighter. Yi replied. Chen Yuyan frowned. Yi was talking about the chosen one. And there is light on Lin Huo, and there is light on the body of the chosen one, but the light on Lin Huo is brighter. So, how about you try that lightning bolt just now? Yi did the same thing, made the same gesture as before, and raised his finger, tremor electric shock. With a snap, a flash of electric light was emitted from the fingertip, and disappeared after a distance of about 4 or 5 meters. Chen Yuyan opened his mouth wide open, not because of this little lightning bolt, but because Yi can actually use magic. He quickly asked, "How did you do it?" Yi made a gesture and said, "There is light around, turn around like this, make movements, drive the light, and shoot it out." Is this light magic? From what Yi said, it seems that she saw the way the Chosen One used his magic power, and then learned it directly. This is a sensational learning speed. It is comparable to writing sharing eyes. That is to say, the chosen person in Hammer Town is either a supernatural being or a magician, and since Yi said that there is light around him, the latter is more likely to be the latter. So, where do these people come from? He had never heard of magic and abilities in the world of Command and Conquer. And, Lin Huo also knew Murphy's. Chen Yuyan's observation of these subtleties can be said to be comparable to him in this world. Although Lin Huo tried his best to conceal it, his detailed expression still fell into Chen Yuyan's eyes. He knew Murphy's, that was absolutely true. "Murphy's, I want to ask you a question." While there was still time, Chen Yuyan asked Murphy's, "When we came to you, you gathered more than 100 hired workers in your villa in Canada. Bing, what were you planning to do?" Murphy's curled his lips in disdain and said, "This old guy Spencer poured dirty water on my head, and everyone can see that he wants to get rid of me, because I followed James Marcus in the first place. Yes. Since he is unkind, I am also unrighteous. If you don't come over, I will cooperate with Christine Henry and rush into the Paris Research Institute to seize the T-virus." "Wait a minute, doesn't your Atlantic Institute have T-virus?" Chen Yuyan asked. Spencer acted quickly. On the first day of the board of directors, he said that the virus leak at the garbage disposal plant in Acre Mountain and Raccoon City was due to my poor management. On the second day, he closed the Atlantic Institute and took away all the things that could be taken away. It was taken away. Naturally, it also includes all the experimental data and T-virus samples. If it hadn't been for the outbreak of the Raccoon City incident, they would have moved all the equipment of the Atlantic Research Institute away. Murphy's is still talking about this matter now, gritting teeth. Fortunately, there is still a chance. I plan to go to the Paris Research Institute to get the T-virus, bring it back to the Atlantic Research Institute, and restart it there to become my new headquarters. Murphy's was proud of his plan. "I have a few friends, they have a way to get a few launch vehicles from the former Soviet Union. I will install a warhead full of T-virus on the launch vehicle, and then target the United States and another big country. The Raccoon City incident has just ended, and all countries are afraid of the T-virus, so as long as I have the T-virus missile, I can ask these two countries for a huge sum of money. In my capacity, I can get $100 million is worth it. One family gave me $5 billion, how fair it is. With this money, I can build my brand new country on the Atlantic Ocean." Murphy's said, opening his hands, as if full of longing for the future, "This is really a beautiful plan, isn't it?" No, after hearing your plan, I just think that you are a good template for a big villain who is finally pushed to the ground by the protagonist. No wonder Lin Huo knows you." Chen Yuyan clutched his forehead and was speechless for a while. He wanted to ask Murphy's directly, "Buddy, what generation of Resident Evil are you from? This guy Murphy's is too idealistic. Why does he think that with the T-virus missile, the United States and another big country will give you $5 billion? What is the face of being a big country? How can you have confidence in a Zanwu scum with only 200 summoning points? Probably in the end, he injected himself with the virus again. Isn't that what the bosses in Resident Evil do? As a result, it is now a consensus that the Wolf Pack team carries a T-virus neutralizer with them when they go on missions. Seeing who wants to inject himself with the virus, give him a one-shot first, and immediately bewildered, yes, just like when Victor dealt with Sergei Vladimir. I chatted with Xian again, and told her that I would go to the world of Resident Evil soon, mainly to help her make up for her shortcomings. When the petite girl was about to kill him with her pistol drawn out on the spot, streaks of white light fell from the sky, and all the summoned wolves and Murphys disappeared. Chunyuan stopped the car, and now there are only him, Yi and Drago left. I had no choice but to let Yi drive his jeep, and drive the AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicle himself. Of course, Drago refused to let go of the MATV all-terrain mine-proof off-road vehicle that was given to him. Now Chunyuan has also noticed that Yi is indeed learning at an unbelievably fast speed, and he didn't feel it much because he was limited by his inability to speak and read. Now that I think about it, I can learn Chinese, a profound language, and have conversations in a week. This speed is simply terrifying. You must know that when she started studying, she was no different from a blank sheet of paper. While driving the infantry fighting vehicle forward, Chunyuan was also thinking in his heart. Although Lin Huo tried to cover it up, he still exposed a lot of things by making trouble for Beltway and Murphys. Lin Huo was probably an experimenter, but he wanted to hide his identity. Not only that, but what he learned might be magic. Moreover, there may be more than one chosen person, so it is likely to be brought back from the world he is in. In order to bring people back and live permanently, the premise is that the world must be monopolized. In other words, kill or recruit other experimenters in that world. This also shows that Lin Huo should have been operating in that world for a long time. But this also shows the difference between ordinary experimenters and myself. With the help of the infinite base, I was able to start from scratch in 2 weeks, and then violently wiped out the Black Wolf tribe and Junkrat to help the grades. In contrast, Lin Huo has been operating in Hammer Town for several years, but still can only accumulate capital by selling concrete and selling tiberium mines for oil, and has saved more than 50 tanks. Compared with him, he is completely at the speed of flying a plane. However, when he gradually grows, there will definitely be interested experimenters who will notice the abnormal development speed on his side, and thus covet him. A smile appeared on the corner of Chunyuan's mouth. It's okay, it's a big deal and I'll just do it sometime. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 179. 178 different villages. Back at the Nuwa base, Chunyuan kept wondering why the NS-4 factory hadn't been repaired yet. When he was building the factory before, he was just about to summon the Wolf Pack team. So after asking the Red Queen 00002 of the Black Wolf base to find a place to put down the building, he didn't pay much attention to it. However, a whole day passed, but there was no notification that the building was completed. Chunyuan checked the system, but found that the building still needs 30 hours. Such a building actually takes 2.5 days? Chunyuan then went to check the building information, and found that the NS-4 robot factory actually occupies a 300 x 80, 24,000 square meter long building. And the metal demand is also quite huge, reaching more than 40,000 tons. If Chunyuan hadn't devoted almost all his energy to making B.O.W recently, and the number of worker ant drone factories had increased to more than 30, he really didn't have so much metal. So Chunyuan asked Yi to continue learning how to speak from Wangjinsong, and drove to Xingfu village by himself. He saw Gan Yu, the village head, leading a group of villagers leveling the land, working in full swing. Although Genyu only had one hand, he was still holding a shovel to shovel the soil. He stepped down with the shovel, kicked up his foot again, and then leaned on the shovel and pressed down with his whole body. A stone lying on the road was caught by him. Pried up. "How's it going, old Gen? It looks like you're in great spirits." Chenyuyan went over to greet him. "Boss." Genyu nodded, looked at the busy villagers around, and said, "Now everyone finally has a goal. In the past, they were just satisfied with a full meal, but now, everyone knows how to work harder to improve my own life. This is all thanks to you, giving everyone a goal to work hard for. But if we really want to live a better life, we need to work harder." Chenyuyan said. "Boss, do you have any plans for our help?" Genyu replied immediately. "I want you to eat better." Chenyuyan said, "I'm going to build a plant factory for soilless cultivation in Xingfu village to grow crops. Is there anyone here who knows this technology?" Genyu was stunned. "Soilless cultivation? I know it. My father's generation used to do farming in other cities. Especially now that Tibertium erosion is everywhere. Soil cultivation to ensure food supply." Chenyuyan was pleasantly surprised, but then frowned again. "But I still need you to do other work." "Then my son. He will too. You know we don't have any entertainment here. I have read him books on agriculture since he was a child. In fact, he knows a lot, but he lacks some practical ones. Experience." Genyu said. "Okay. After I build the plant factory, you can get him to help me." Chenyuyan agreed. In addition, seeing the supply of extra meat and daily necessities, many villagers hope to have more opportunities to earn these, but there is no way. There are more than a dozen people who signed up to join the Ruin Army. When their enthusiasm was really high, they simply organized everyone to find something to do. Genyu said. "Then you are busy." Chenyuyan said, "I hope you will represent me fully to discuss trade matters with Hammertown. We export weapons and equipment, and Hammertown sells concrete and prefabricated panels to us. There are some daily necessities, such as clothes." Genyu's eyes lit up. "Boss, are you going to rebuild our entire place?" Chenyuyan smiled and said, "It's not just here, what I want is to rebuild the entire ruined city. Let this place reach or even exceed the level before the war. Do you believe it?" "I believe it. I believe it. If it is the boss, it will definitely be possible." "I believe it." Genyu nodded with great excitement. "Haha. Good. Let's do it together." Chenyuyan laughed and patted Genyu's shoulder. "I've listed the things I can export, and it's here. Take a look, and then go talk to the people in Iron Hammer Town. In addition to buying a lot of concrete and hiring a construction team, I'd better find a way to get them to transfer the production line drawings of the Scorpion I assault rifle to us." Genyu took it and looked at the list, and found that there were terrorist robots, AMX-VSI infantry fighting vehicles, AMX-10P infantry fighting vehicles, LG-1 light howitzers, M2F light tanks, and even protector-type guard robots. He raised his head and looked at Chenyuyan. "Boss, these things are going to be sold, is it okay?" "Hee, are you worried that with these things in Hammer Town, they will pose a greater threat to us?" "Yes, these equipment," Genyu frowned. "Don't worry, just go ahead and talk," Chenyuyan said with a smile. "In fact, it doesn't matter if these things are sold to Linhuo. The 10P and VSI infantry fighting vehicles, as well as the LG-1 light howitzer are all products of the manufacturing center, and he doesn't sell many of them. But it doesn't matter if he sells more to Linhuo, the real trump card in his hand hasn't been played yet. Me-24 Hind gunship. It doesn't matter even if you sell 100 LG-1s to Linhuo, it's not enough to blow up a Hind. Even if there is no driver now, you can temporarily hire a driver from that African warlord to make do with it. Moreover, The infinite base also has the function of product export. For example, terrorist robots and protector robots, if they are to be exported, each robot can be attached with a USB flash drive, and the purchaser can directly reset the programs of these robots through the USB flash drive, which is very convenient. But those low-level B.O.Ws can't, unless the B.O.W implanted with the Nemesis parasite can modify the program and export it. After explaining to Genyu and telling him to go to Iron Hammer Town with Wang Ji and Drago to negotiate after he was ready, Chen also went to Muhi village and Beatty village. However, the situation of these two villages made Chen face darken. Compared with the lively Happy village, Beatty village and Muhi village are completely lifeless. As before, the villagers wandered around the streets when they had nothing to do, and occasionally went to the greenhouses where food and vegetables were grown to have a look. They simply looked like they were just waiting to die. But obviously they have been given more goals, daily necessities and meat are rationed every month. The recruitment notice of the Ruin Legion is also posted at the entrance of the village, and the clinic has also opened. The opportunity for the villagers to improve their lives through labor is right in front of them, but they all turn a blind eye to it. Beatty village was a little bit better. Finally, people could still be seen cleaning the streets and renovating houses. The village head, Cao Zheng, also received 2 or 3 requests to enlist in the army. However, under the leadership of the village chief Zhang Qing, Muhi village did nothing at all. Chen Yuyan pretended to be nonchalant and asked Zhang Qing, but she only said that the villagers may have gotten used to the old life and still need time to get used to it. Maybe the situation will be better after the next crop harvest. However, Chen Yuyan was like Ming Jing in his heart. Maybe Cao Zheng was really not active and seemed to follow the crowd, and Zhang Qing, she did not know how many small tricks she did in the process. These were the results that Chen Yuyan had already expected when he confirmed that the distribution of meat and daily necessities would be carried out through the village chief during the last meeting. It's just that I didn't expect Zhang Qing to be so unscrupulous. There will be another update in a while. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 180. 179 NS-4 Civilian Robot. Chen Yuyan didn't say anything more. After coming out of Zhang Qing's side, he went directly to the people from the village's self-police group to find out the situation. He went there only to find out that the self-police regiment in each village is composed of 5 soldiers from the Ruin Legion and 5 local villagers with 5 guard robots, but the self-police regiment sent by Zhang Qing to Muhi village is actually 5 veterans. Weak and disabled. According to the members of the Muhi village self-police corps, from the first day Chen Yuyan issued the new policy, Zhang Qing kept all the meat and daily necessities in his own hands, and he ate fish and meat every day at home. Glossy. And at the same time, Zhang Qing also expropriated food from the villagers under various names. Just like in the previous rule of the Black Wolf tribe, he searched all the surplus food in the villagers' homes. Then hand over the grain to Chen Yuyan with his left hand and right hand, which is considered as a basis for her to enjoy those resources exclusively. The reason why Zhang Qing did it so blatantly was because she thought she saw through that Chen Yuyan needed villagers like them and needed people. And their family has been the head of Muhi village since their father's generation, and they are highly respected in the village, so the villagers also habitually obey her. So, relying on this, she made Chen Yuyan dare not touch her. Once Chen Yuyan made her anxious, she would incite the villagers to fight against Chen Yuyan. So in her opinion, if Chen Yuyan wanted to make the villagers of Muhi village obedient, he had to pass her test first. If you have the ability to slaughter Muhi village, these are her exact words. Hearing this, the people from the police regiment originally thought that Chen Yuyan would be furious, and immediately arrested Zhang Qing and executed him in public. But it didn't. Chen Yuyan just smiled lightly, told the members of the self-police group not to pay attention to these things, just do whatever they want, and then left. Does Chen Yuyan want to kill Zhang Qing? Of course he wanted to, but he also recognized Zhang Qing's judgment. Most of these villagers come from a very closed environment and live a self-sufficient small-scale farming life. Just killing Zhangqing like this will only make them more autistic. However, he has already arranged a best ending for Zhangqing, which is also the best ending for him. Don't worry now, anyway, the production line of the infinite base is too late to build 3 villages at the same time. Let's start with Xingfu village first. After completing the search of the 3 villages, Chen Yuyan went to play with Yi again, and then saw that the NS-4 robot factory was almost done, so he drove to the Black Wolf base. Before the factory was repaired, he couldn't see the data of the NS-4 robot. He seemed to have seen this model before, but he didn't have a deep impression, but since it took more than 2 days to build the factory, it was very worthwhile. In the Black Wolf base, a large blue light curtain shrouded the rear of the base, occupying almost all of the reserved space of the base. It seems that the worker ant drones will be busy again later, but it doesn't matter, anyway. Now there is Red Queen 00002 controlling here, just tell her, and she will arrange it naturally. Chen Yuyan also went to look at the 40 soldiers of the ruined army, but found that all of them were staggering and doing recovery exercises under the leadership of several captains. After inquiring, I found out that after Hank came here before, he was furious when he saw these loose soldiers, and immediately sent them to training immediately. The soldiers were completely confused by this man who came out of nowhere and asked them to do 100 push UPS and then run 20 laps as soon as they met. Naturally, it was impossible to listen to Hank's instructions. But Hank was not polite, he just walked up alone, and beat those who were not convinced, as much as there were, 1 who refused to accept, and 10 who refused to accept, and beat all 40 people to the ground. Then Wang Ji said that this Wushuan brother was a friend of their boss Chen Yuyan, and then they followed Hank's instructions. As a result, all 40 people were practiced by Hank in half a day. Just kidding, Hank's training, except for Chen Yuyan, even the members of the Wolf Pack team can't stand it, let alone these people. That's why this scene happened. These people haven't recovered yet. If Wang Ji hadn't started to have a strong sense of responsibility and urged them to get up and do recovery training, they would probably all be lying on the bed. Chen Yuyan also found it funny when he saw this scene, and he asked Drago to lead these people to start professional and systematic training. Then I went to the robot factory. The NS-4 robot factory has been built and can manufacture NS-4 civilian robots. The blue light curtain disappeared instantly, and an incomparably magnificent factory appeared in front of Chen Yuyan. I can only see that this factory is almost entirely composed of various machinery, and the structure is very complicated. From a distance, it looks like a giant steel beast lying on the ground. NS-4 civilian robot. Construction conditions, Level 3, Manufacturing Center. Construction resources, 100 kilograms of metal, 10 kilograms of low-purity refined tiberium. Build time, 5 hours. Function, civilian robot, can be engaged in many kinds of work. With intermediate artificial intelligence, logical judgment is equivalent to that of junior high school students. This robot is programmed based on the 3 laws of robotics and therefore cannot be used in any combat operations. At the same time, the image of a robot with slender limbs and a simple structure appeared in the picture in his mind. I remembered. Chen Yuyan's heart was shocked. Isn't this the kind of robot in Robot? It's just that in this movie, 90% of the space is about the latest NS-5 robot, and there are only a few minutes of space for the outdated model NS-4. No wonder I couldn't remember it for a while. What impressed Chen Yuyan most about this kind of robots was that even though they were abandoned by humans, they still only wanted to protect humans. When the NS-5 robots later launched a mutiny, they were still trying their best to stop them, but their performance in all aspects could not be compared with the latest NS-5, so they were massacred by NS-5. However, although it is an outdated model in the movie, it is just in time for me. Although it takes a long time to produce one set in 5 hours, and this kind of factory occupies a huge area, and consumes extremely high resources, it cannot form a large number in a short period of time, but it is enough to become the flagship of the country Chinhuyan is building. Cornerstone. Without the slightest hesitation, Chinhuyan gave Red Queen 00002 the order to continuously produce NS-4 robots, and he is now full of excitement. Speaking of the few lottery draws so far, others are icing on the cake, but the most useful ones are the worker ant drone factory and the NS-4 robot factory. When the business in Hammertown is concluded and a large amount of concrete and prefabricated panels are imported, the period of large-scale construction of the Ruin Legion is about to begin. And at this time, these robots will play an extremely critical role.